Hello there. So, famous YouTube celebrities, Tanya Burr and Jim Chapman, have just announced that they're splitting up. And this has come as a huge surprise to a lot of mainly sort of 15 and 16-year-old girls who've been following Tanya and Jim for years now and who basically assumed that their relationship was the most steady relationship imaginable. Actually, there's a forum called Guru Gossiper, or Guru Gossip actually I think it's called, who've been following Tanya and Jim's relationship for, don't laugh, for Tanya and Jim's relationship for, years basically. And for the last probably about 6 months, they've been suggesting that their relationship was on the rocks, something wasn't quite right. So they've really been predicting that maybe Tanya and Jim would split up. And yes, it has actually happened. Now, Tanya and Jim have separately released statements on Instagram saying that they've grown apart, they're still really good friends, but they've decided to separate now. And they want people to respect their privacy, which is, of course, absolutely fine. I hope that one day they kind of talk about it a little bit more because, we're quite invested in their lives and it would be nice to have a little bit of information about what actually happened because the reasons they've given are quite vague and I don't think they have to be particularly personal about the reasons they give. They just have to kind of be a little bit honest, give us a little bit more information. So with that in mind, I'd just like to discuss a little bit the reasons that I've read on Guru Gossip and my own thoughts about maybe why Tanya and Jim have split up. So firstly, Tanya and Jim got together, I think, when they were both about 16 years old. So they've been going out a long time, and a lot of relationships do fall apart after that length of time, especially when people have got together at such a young age. You do, although it's a cliche, you do grow apart. But from my sort of outsider perspective, it does rather feel, from having watched their videos for quite some time, that they have changed, and specifically Tanya has changed in that time. Just my personal opinion, but if you go back and watch videos from years ago, Tanya was a very sort of timid, quiet girl with really quite a subdued personality. And over the years, Tanya's understandably built in confidence as she's attended huge premieres and done ever sort of grand things resulting from her YouTube fame. And I think the ultimate sort of change for her is that she's almost left YouTube behind and focused mainly on her acting career. She's often in Los Angeles having meetings and auditions and appearing in, having, sort of small parts in plays and in television programs, and I think she really wants to make it big into the movies and things. But it really seems that Tanya's focus in life has kind of changed, and her personality appears to have matured, as you would expect. But I do wonder whether or not that sort of change and that motivation to become a famous actress has played a role in Jim and Tanya growing apart. Maybe Tanya's heavily focused on her acting career and not so invested in Jim. Maybe Tanya wants to move to LA to pursue her acting and maybe Jim doesn't. So that's kind of one side of the argument. The other side is that Jim, who I kind of perceive as having not really changed that much, he does seem to have a sort of tendency, by his own admission, to sometimes be a bit sort of self-critical, maybe a little bit questioning his actions and things like that. And maybe that sort of personality, that sort of slightly self-deprecating personality, maybe that's jarred on Tanya slightly, having been together since, as I say, they were about 16 years old. So maybe they have kind of genuinely grown apart. Now, I don't actually believe that they have just drifted apart. I'm personally of the opinion that, you know, relationships don't end like that. I think it's more likely that they've maybe clashed in some way over the last few months, which is, I think, when this separation has actually happened. They say it's happened in the last kind of couple of weeks, but actually they haven't really featured in each other's social media. They haven't really mentioned each other for months now. And in fact, there was an article, I can't remember what newspaper it was, I think it might have been the Times, where Jim's family were interviewed as the sort of Chapmans, and Jim Chapman was there, but Tanya wasn't present. And this was months ago now. I think this might have even been before Christmas. So it was clear that something wasn't quite right then. And having watched a few of the sort of live streams from Jim's family, there were some odd comments at the time, which, you know, you don't read too much into at the time, but looking back on them now, seem a little bit suspicious. So it's clear that things weren't quite right. But I think that maybe Tanya and Jim separated several months ago, and they've been waiting for the dust to settle before announcing it to people. But I'd be really keen to know, and we're probably never going to find out, but whether or not this has really been a gradual thing, whether or not they've just decided to separate, or whether there was some huge event, some huge argument that's led to this separation. Maybe one day we'll find out, but for now, I guess we just have to sort of accept it and move on. Anyway, if you agree with me, if you think that this has been on the cards for quite some time, then let me know down below. If you've got another explanation, I'd be keen to hear that as well. I don't want any bitching about the two of them. There's no hate towards them, and we don't want to say anything horrible about them. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time for another video.